Eli Vance had seen countless nights like this. The biting chill, the relentless drizzle, the constant hum of the city, a stark contrast to the silence of the bench. Tonight, he was just another face among the forgotten, huddled deep in an alleyway near the city's old warehouse district, his only companions the shadows and the biting wind. For the past 3 weeks, he had been living undercover, a meticulous, dangerous assignment to understand the true ground-level realities of a city's struggling population, particularly how they interacted with law enforcement. He was observing, listening, feeling the vulnerability that came with being invisible. He was, in fact, Federal Judge Elijah Vance, a man whose rulings shaped lives, currently disguised as one of the very people he sought to understand. For more gripping tales from the hidden corners of justice and beyond, subscribe to Dark Side of Luna, where the shadows hold the truth. Suddenly, the harsh beam of a police flashlight cut through the darkness, followed by heavy footsteps echoing on the wet pavement. 2 uniformed officers, Officer Miller and Officer Jenkins, emerged from the alley's mouth, their faces stern, their demeanor aggressive. Eli barely had time to blink before Miller's harsh voice cut through the rain. "Hey you, what do you think you're doing? Loitering? Vagrancy? This isn't a homeless shelter, pal. Move along." Miller barked, his voice laced with contempt. Eli slowly shifted, attempting to rise, his movements deliberately slow and unthreatening, as he had practiced. "Just trying to get out of the rain, officer," he mumbled, keeping his eyes down, playing the part. Officer Jenkins, younger and seemingly more eager to impress, kicked at Eli's meager belongings. "Don't play innocent. We've had complaints. You got any ID? Anything to explain why you're festering here?" Eli shook his head slightly. "No, sir, nothing on me." Miller scoffed, stepping closer. "Nothing on you, huh? Just like your kind. Always hiding something." His boot nudged Eli's shoulder roughly. "Let's see if you're hiding anything else." Without warning, Miller grabbed Eli by the collar of his worn coat, yanking him up and slamming him roughly against the brick wall. The impact rattled Eli's teeth, but he suppressed a grunt of pain, maintaining his act. "Resisting, huh? You want to get tough with us?" Jenkins joined in, shoving Eli's legs out from under him, sending him sprawling back onto the wet, grimy pavement. The homeless man lay there, vulnerable, as the officer stood over him. "You're not so tough now, are you, hobo?" Miller sneered, his face inches from Eli's. "Get up. You're coming with us." He then delivered a deliberate, heavy kick to Eli's side. Eli grunted, a genuine, uncontrolled sound of pain. Jenkins, seeing the reaction, chuckled. "Looks like he needs a lesson in respect." He raised his foot, ready to deliver another blow. From the deeper shadows of the alley's mouth, a figure emerged, not in a patrol uniform, but in a dark, tactical vest emblazoned with FBI across the chest. Special Agent Thorne, a formidable woman with an unyielding gaze, held her weapon steady, pointed directly at Officer Miller. Behind her, 2 more agents, equally stoic, fanned out, their presence instantly transforming the alley into a federal crime scene. Officer Miller and Officer Jenkins froze, their faces a mixture of confusion and disbelief. "FBI," Miller stammered, his earlier aggression replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. "What the hell? This is local jurisdiction." Agent Thorne's voice was calm, but each word resonated with absolute authority. "This was local jurisdiction, officer. Now it's a federal matter. Both of you, hands on your heads, slowly turn around and interlace your fingers. Now." Her tone left no room for defiance. Miller and Jenkins exchanged a panicked glance, their arrogance visibly deflating as they grudgingly complied. Agent Thorne's eyes flickered to Eli, still sprawled on the wet ground, groaning softly. "You all right, sir?" she asked, her voice softening almost imperceptibly, a stark contrast to her command. She didn't offer to help him up, a subtle cue that this was part of the plan, maintaining his disguise for the moment. Eli, playing his part, nodded weakly, wincing as he slowly pushed himself to a sitting position. As Miller and Jenkins were being cuffed, Miller's eyes darted between Agent Thorne and the homeless man. "What is this, a sting operation? This vagrant isn't." Agent Thorne cut him off, her voice low but piercingly clear, meant only for the two officers to hear. This vagrant, Officer Miller, is a federal asset under active federal protection. Your unprovoked assault on him, captured on our surveillance, constitutes not just aggravated assault, but a direct violation of federal civil rights statutes and potentially obstruction of a federal investigation. She paused, letting the words sink in. And for your information, he was observing an ongoing pattern of abuse in this district, a pattern you two have just vividly confirmed. The color drained from Officer Miller's face. Jenkins's jaw went slack. Federal asset? Surveillance. Their minds raced, trying to comprehend the disaster they had just unleashed upon themselves. The initial shock morphed into abject, gut-wrenching terror. They hadn't just beaten a homeless man. They had assaulted a protected figure, possibly even an informant for a larger federal investigation into police misconduct. The implications were catastrophic. Their careers, their freedom, their very lives were now forfeit to the very system they had so brazenly abused. Eli, watching their faces, felt a cold satisfaction. The pain in his side was sharp, but the vindication was sharper. He slowly got to his feet, assisted by one of Thorne's agents, his tattered coat doing little to hide the quiet, unshakable authority that had begun to return to his posture. The storm had passed, but the true reckoning had just begun. The physical pain from Officer Miller's kick was a dull throb, a constant reminder of the raw vulnerability of his undercover life. But for Elijah Vance, now receiving medical attention under the watchful eye of Special Agent Thorne, the true injury was to the public trust. The disguise was off, the beard shaved, and the weary exterior replaced by the sharp, piercing gaze of federal Judge Elijah Vance. He reviewed the comprehensive reports from Agent Thorne. Miller and Jenkins were in federal custody, their arrogant defiance replaced by utter terror as the full weight of their actions and his identity began to dawn on them. Their initial resisting arrest claims quickly evaporated when presented with the FBI's own covert surveillance footage of the assault. Your Honor, Agent Thorne began, her voice respectful. The preliminary evidence from your body camera, as well as our own surveillance, is damning. We have them on multiple counts of civil rights violations and aggravated assault. Judge Vance nodded, his jaw tight. Good. But this isn't just about Miller and Jenkins, Agent Thorne. That was merely a symptom. My time on the streets showed me a pervasive rot. His eyes, though tired, held a burning resolve. We're going after the source. Judge Vance's undercover operation had not merely been about observing random police misconduct. His true objective was to gather first-hand evidence on a cruel, unofficial, yet widely enforced municipal directive, the Urban Renewal and Homeless Eradication Policy. Spearheaded by the city's charismatic but ruthless Mayor Thomas Harding and ruthlessly implemented by Police Chief Robert Caldwell, this policy was designed to clean up the city's image for upcoming major real estate development deals and a high-profile international summit. It wasn't about housing or rehabilitation. It was about forced displacement. Police units, including Miller and Jenkins's precinct, were given unofficial quotas for disrupting homeless encampments, clearing public spaces, and addressing vagrancy, often through intimidation, harassment, and undocumented physical violence. The homeless, stripped of their belongings, were pushed out of sight, sometimes across county lines, sometimes into dangerous, underserved peripheral zones. Eli had witnessed countless similar abuses over the weeks, but his own assault provided irrefutable, personal proof of the policy's brutal enforcement. As the federal grand jury convened under Judge Vance's quiet but firm guidance, Mayor Harding and Chief Caldwell began a frantic cover-up, destroying documents and silencing dissenting voices within their ranks. However, they underestimated the moral conscience lurking within their own system. Eleanor Hayes, a long-serving, unassuming administrative assistant in the mayor's Office of Urban Development, had been quietly horrified by the callousness of the homeless eradication policy. She possessed a trove of meticulously copied emails, confidential meeting minutes, and even audio recordings of Mayor Harding privately instructing Chief Caldwell to be more aggressive in relocating the undesirables before the international summit. She had even documented the lucrative backroom deals between the mayor's office and powerful real estate developers who stood to gain billions from the cleared downtown areas. Terrified but driven by justice after hearing news of a federal judge assaulted while undercover, Eleanor anonymously delivered her evidence to Agent Thorne, providing the crucial, irrefutable link to the top. The stakes escalated dramatically. Mayor Harding, a man with powerful connections, tried to exert political pressure on the Department of Justice, even attempting to orchestrate a smear campaign against Judge Vance, questioning his judgment for undertaking such a dangerous undercover assignment. But Judge Vance, now fully recovered and back in his chambers, was relentless. He knew the cost of injustice, and he carried the scars of his undercover mission as a personal vow. The stage was set for an unprecedented confrontation between the highest levels of city power and the unwavering force of federal justice. The federal grand jury's swift indictments of Officer Miller and Officer Jenkins sent shockwaves through the city. But the news that Mayor Thomas Harding and Police Chief Robert Caldwell were now under federal investigation, implicated by the harrowing testimony of an undercover federal judge and a brave administrative assistant, unleashed a political firestorm. Harding, a master manipulator of public opinion, immediately launched a ruthless counteroffensive. "This is an outrageous abuse of federal power," Mayor Harding declared at a hastily convened press conference, his voice dripping with indignation. "A federal judge, masquerading as a vagrant? What kind of unstable individual puts himself and taxpayer money at such risk? This entire investigation is a politically motivated witch hunt designed to discredit my administration and undermine our efforts to clean up this city." Chief Caldwell echoed his sentiments, subtly implying that Judge Vance's unconventional methods were unethical and possibly compromised. They leaked carefully distorted information about Judge Vance's mental health history and his financial investments, attempting to paint him as erratic, untrustworthy, and even corrupt. Eleanor Hayes, the whistleblower, found herself the target of a vicious online smear campaign, her past dredged up and twisted into accusations of professional jealousy and instability. But Judge Vance was a strategist. He had anticipated their desperate maneuvers. From his federal chambers, now under constant security, he worked tirelessly with Agent Thorne. They knew the mayor's public attacks were a smokescreen, designed to buy time for the destruction of more evidence and the intimidation of other potential witnesses. The mayor's frantic efforts to bury evidence inadvertently led Agent Thorne to a new, horrifying discovery. While tracing the flow of funds for the urban renewal projects, they uncovered a complex web of shell corporations. These weren't just for real estate deals. They were also funneling money into a shadowy, paramilitary-style private security firm called Urban Watchmen. This firm, ostensibly hired to augment police presence in downtown areas, was directly staffed by former police officers with documented histories of excessive force and a few off-duty, disgruntled current officers. Their true purpose, directed by Chief Caldwell under the mayor's implicit approval, was to act as an untraceable extension of the homeless eradication policy, carrying out even more brutal, often illegal, cleanup operations far from official police oversight. Eli's personal encounter was just a small fraction of the widespread, often unrecorded violence perpetrated by this rogue force. The stakes reached a fever pitch. The mayor and chief, emboldened by their initial success in swaying public opinion against Vance, decided to publicly challenge the federal investigation. They announced a citizens' rally for law and order, intending to frame it as a grassroots demand for the federal government to back off. However, Judge Vance and Agent Thorne saw this as their opening. They had been discreetly cultivating alliances with ethical journalists and community leaders who had long suspected the mayor's true agenda. The mayor's citizens' rally for law and order was meant to be his crowning moment of defiance. Instead, it became his spectacular downfall, an absolute, once-in-a-lifetime public reckoning. Just as Mayor Harding began his prepared speech, a technical glitch, orchestrated by Agent Thorne's team, who had subtly infiltrated the event's media hub, seized control of the massive jumbotrons flanking the stage. The screens moments ago displaying patriotic slogans suddenly flickered to life with the raw, unedited footage provided by Eleanor Hayes and augmented by the FBI's own covert surveillance. The horrifying images of the urban watchmen, masked figures, many of them unmistakably former or off-duty police officers, brutally assaulting homeless individuals, dragging them from their meager shelters, and destroying their belongings, played out for thousands to see. The crowd, initially confused, erupted in a collective gasp, then a wave of stunned silence, followed by an explosion of outrage. Mayor Harding's face, projected onto the very screens now betraying him, contorted in pure, unadulterated terror as the truth of his urban renewal policy was laid bare for all the world to witness. In that moment of public exposure, the dam broke. The federal grand jury, armed with irrefutable evidence, wasted no time. Mayor Thomas Harding was arrested live on stage, his hands still clutched to the podium, his cries of federal overreach drowned out by the thunderous boos of a betrayed populace. Police Chief Robert Caldwell was apprehended in his office, attempting to shred documents, but Agent Thorne's team was already there. Officers Miller and Jenkins, already in federal custody, watched their former superiors fall from behind bars. The web of corrupt real estate developers and the clandestine urban watchman firm were dismantled overnight. The trials were a national spectacle, unlike anything seen before. The collective testimony, from the raw footage of Judge Vance's own beating, to Eleanor Hayes's courageous accounting of internal communications, to the agonizing stories of the homeless individuals brutalized by the urban watchmen, formed an unbreakable chain of evidence. Mayor Thomas Harding and Police Chief Robert Caldwell were convicted of an unprecedented array of charges: racketeering, conspiracy against civil rights, obstruction of justice, and abuse of public office. They received the maximum sentences, their fall from grace a stark warning to any who would exploit the vulnerable for power or profit. Officer Miller and Officer Jenkins received severe federal sentences, their brutal actions serving as a grim example of unchecked authority. The real estate magnates faced staggering fines and prison time, their empires crumbling in a cascade of justice. The Urban Watchman firm was permanently disbanded, its members facing criminal charges. But the justice extended far beyond the courtroom. Under the unwavering guidance of federal Judge Elijah Vance, whose courage resonated across the nation, the city underwent an absolute, once-in-a-lifetime transformation. The urban renewal and homeless eradication policy was not just abolished, it was replaced by a pioneering dignity and inclusion initiative. Millions of dollars recovered from the corrupt officials and developers were redirected to fund permanent supportive housing, comprehensive mental health services, job training programs, and community-led initiatives for the homeless. The police department underwent a radical, federally mandated restructuring, purging corrupt elements and implementing new, human-centered policing models with rigorous training in de-escalation, empathy, and working with vulnerable populations. An empowered, independent civilian oversight board became a permanent fixture, ensuring transparency and accountability. The alley where Judge Vance was beaten became a symbol of hope, adorned with murals celebrating resilience and community. A bronze plaque was installed, honoring the forgotten, and a vibrant new shelter, Vance House, opened its doors, a testament to the judge who walked among them. Judge Elijah Vance, having borne witness to the city's darkest depths and endured personal violation, returned to his bench with an unparalleled understanding of justice's true weight. His legacy was cemented as a champion for the voiceless, a judge whose empathy was as profound as his legal acumen. His sacrifice ignited a movement, transforming not just a city, but inspiring a national dialogue on compassion, accountability, and the profound, enduring power of human dignity. For more gripping tales from the hidden corners of justice and beyond, subscribe to Dark Side of Luna, where the shadows hold the truth.